we aim to ensure that at least the financing also, which is directed from the banks and institutions which lend finances, is directed towards realizing sustainable development projects, right? And so of importance, in order for us to bridge that gap, I think strong leadership, innovation, right, and accountability from the duty bearers as well as the citizens who receive this, who are the recipients of this cash flow, is required so that we can bridge that gap, which the president has already highlighted, and it's in the NDC as well. Yeah.
All right. You mentioned climate financing from international donors, of course, from the global community. Do you think that the goodwill still exists towards climate financing in Kenya, being a third world country?
Well, I would say that, first of all, relying on goodwill is not a good strategy.
Okay.
Because if you listen to what the president said and what the fact is,
yes.
When he mentioned about the Bretton Woods institutions like the IMFs and the World Bank, and the fact that these were, established as reconstruction vehicles for post-war Europe and America. And this ecosystem and these structures have stayed decades and centuries later. That means that it mostly does not serve developing countries and poor countries. If you look at the debt matrix, if you look at the cost of credit for African countries and developing countries, it's much higher, it's much more expensive, and it has been a challenge to access external climate financing for most of these countries. That is not to say that it is all gloom and doom. We have seen a lot of global partnerships, global coming together of different institutions, different countries, but goodwill is not enough. What I would say is we need a very deliberate shift from aid to alliance, aid to investment, so that Africa and most of the developing countries in the global south are not just seen as passive recipients of aid, but investment opportunities. This way we get to balance the scale. And I would say that the opportunity in the developing countries is massive. It's huge, just by some of the innovations and the enterprises that we were mentioning earlier. So that needs to change. But at the same time, we have to also prioritize locally led development.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we have to take charge of our own development. And the president talked about Africa not just being a victim, but a solutions provider. That needs to move from rhetoric to action. So we want to see more political will. She mentioned about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. There's a lot of political will that needs to go into that. There's a lot of accountability mechanisms that needs to be built. And from the second Africa Climate Summit recently, we saw a lot of positive move in that direction with the pledging of around 100 billion by African multilateral financial institutions towards African green industrialization, which is a good step in the right direction, but that needs to be followed on with a lot of action, a lot of goodwill to put this into action. So I would